Hello, hello, MLS fantasy fans. Let's see here. I just noticed I need to swap the names of Tyler and Ron here. You guys are in the wrong spots. Let's get that fixed up. There we go. Get Ron right there. Get Tyler right. Right. Using the keypad. Ah, there we go. Got all that fixed up right there. Hello, everyone. Yes, Gene is here. Let's make sure we do this thing since Ashley is not.
Recording in progress.
Bam, there we go. Recording in progress. Gene, how are you the number 3 badge and you've typed the most so far? I don't know. That's ridiculous. Let's see here. Getting the social out right now. Make sure the volume looks good. I guess it could be a little bit louder. Get it up there. Move the mic closer to. Oh, that's too hot. That's too hot. Bring it down. Bring it down. There we go. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, let's get the social out here. Bam. Out there. And do a like and a retweet. Head back here over to Blue Sky. Do the light and the retweet. Repost, re-sky, whatever that is. And then heading over to the good old Reddit. Good to see you all who have joined us tonight. So happy to have massive round that we have. Saw some of the scores that people shared in on Twitter before we went live tonight. So it was awesome to see that. So looking forward to seeing what everybody else is, how they've done with their round. This was an excellent double game week, as we all knew going into everything. Let me turn this phone down a little bit so we can minimize the random dings on the back end, but not too much in case Lady Boss is in need. So, whoops. Let's get the right stream link. There we go. Got that right there. Okay. So there is. Did I change that? Yeah. Got that there. Heading over to the general chat. Hey, everyone. So now, all right, there we go. All the social is out. If you would please be so kind to like and subscribe and share. If you're joining us here on YouTube, hit the bell notification. It all helps so much. The numbers keep climbing on YouTube, and so it's pretty awesome to see that. So very excited to reach people on this platform. If you like this kind of thing, this MLS fantasy soccer, then welcome. You have found your home. We come to you live pretty much every Monday, barring a few little strange schedule conflicts that may happen throughout the year, or off weeks, which we have one coming up pretty soon. But we're pretty much here for you live every Monday, talking about the official MLS fantasy game, giving you a big overview. So that's what we're here to do today. Massive double game week. See, it looks like everything is all set, so we will get ready right now with the intro. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 22 of the 2025 MLS fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by MLS All-Star Fantasy Snubs. That's right, we see them. But actually brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Learn more over at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partners in fantasy, Tyler Norman, filling in for Ashley Savage, who is out sick tonight. But that leaves us plenty of room for our very special guest, new MLS Fantasy longtime Discord member, longtime Patreon supporter, new MLS Fantasy Boss website author, co-author, Ron Birnbaum. How you doing tonight, guys?
Doing great.
Doing well.
That's right.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you all here. Yeah, Ron and Mike have been running the Strategy Clinic articles. They've been doing fantastic. A lot of people love kind of that deeper dive into some of this tactical, strategic, just the statistical elements of the game. And so if you like that kind of thing, check it out with our own fantasy physician and fantasy therapist that we have on staff now with MLS Fantasy Boss. So guys, excited to have you here the chat through. This was a massive double game week, a good double game week compared to some of the ones we've had in the past. We knew that the way things were lining up, it was going to be pretty profitable, and I don't think it let people down. So excited to hear about how you all did in this last round. If you're joining us right now on YouTube, please do let us know how you did in chat. Just put your scores in there. And guys, let's start with just some quick takeaways from this past double game week before we get into talking about the players we're targeting this week. So Tyler, how'd you do? What'd you take away?
Yeah, I actually had one of my better weeks this week. I finished on 208. I was super happy to have picked Rusnak and BL, even though I stuck them on my bench. They were kind of my flyers that I was like, I don't know, they might do well. And I was hoping they would do well, and man, did they perform. Some surprises I had was the Red Bulls were dominant.
Oh my gosh.
Especially Forsberg. He popped for what, like 25 this week, maybe a little more. And I was legitimately shocked by how well he was doing, because he was not on my radar at all. And another thing was San Diego's passing. Funny enough, while they're down, they're not winning the game, but Pilcher had 155 passes in one game and 111 in the other game. And then the game that they ended up, I think they tied it in the last few seconds, but they were losing. McVay had 146 passes. Pilcher had 155. Like, what are they doing? But at the same time, that's very impressive. That gives me flashbacks to what are their names? I think it was SKC guys. Come on, help me out. Like OG SKC. I need Cam in here. But it was like the OG guys, big names from SKC that would always pass the ball around, knock it around, get 100+ passes every game. And
like Ike Opara? No.
It was Opara and someone else. Not Shalloway. It was a Diesler.
Matt Beasler.
Yeah, Matt Diesler and Opara.
Beasler, with a B. Beasler.
Beasler and Opara, they would just knock the ball around. I think Beasler had the last previous high of passes, which was like 138 or something like that. Pilcher just smashed it with 155 passes. Like, actually insane getting that many passes in a game. I know this is going to be on a lot of disappointments, but I'm just going to say one word, and that's dryer. I think everyone's disappointed in him this week, but I'm going to add on to that too and say Charlotte defense was a big disappointment this week. They had a lot of good clean sheet opportunities, and they did not perform at all. General takeaways for me: don't sleep on high average point players. There's a reason they have a high average point, and your players, like, obviously everyone's gonna have Messi and Evander, but like Bawanga, Rusnak, Mukhtar, Beal, Ojeda, Zinkernagel, Surridge, all those players had really good weeks. And if you look at their average scores throughout the week, they're consistently good scores all the time. So just don't sleep on an average good score.
Ron, what about you?
I had a decent week. I was happy with it, with a 203, which has me up to rank 52, and been moving up. So happy about that. A few, a couple surprises. One is Anthony Markanich, and maybe this observation has been made, but he scored like 4 goals in 5 games. For a defender, that's insane and outstanding. And so I'll just mention that. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised at Nashville's clean sheets, but I was surprised at Cincinnati's clean sheets, having 2. Like, especially against Miami, like, that's a big deal. No, that made a lot of people look away from Cincinnati, maybe for and then being on the road for the second game. But and you think maybe with Nwobodo gone that it's not going to happen. So I think we just have to, it's just a surprise. It was a surprise to me. Same disappointment in Dreyer. And I couldn't watch those games because I was watching Galaxy games. But what I think one thing is that they've had some. Dreyer he's very dependent on getting the ball passed to him. He doesn't come pick it up way back. So maybe Pilcher and McVay are passing it back and forth to each other, running up their passes, but there's somehow it's not connecting up to the front line. This is a guess because I couldn't watch those games, but yeah, so it's could just be off games. And then I guess this isn't exactly a general takeaway. Actually, no, I'll make this a general takeaway. It's related to what Ranch said, which is you don't always need to do differentials by thinking of a player that nobody's thought of. Sometimes there's just a lot of really good players, and it's picking the right ones and not picking the bad chalk, right? It's sort of a follow-on to what Ranch is saying.
That was like Rusnak this week.
Yeah. So, and I guess last one was I faded him 2 minutes before. You guys have been talking about him on the pod, but I think we just have to admit that Pep Biel is just a good player and a good fantasy player. And I think people are going to want to look at him this week. That's it.
That's good. Not too many takeaways. Those are great ones so far. So I got a 174, which I can't help but feel disappointed in. Went down some in the ranks. I mean, it really felt like you needed to be pushing 200 to have a good round this week. And funny enough, a lot of my players put up good points. It was just a few places here and there that didn't work out. Didn't really hit with goalkeeper options there. Ended up having Andrew Thomas there. Freeman didn't work for me. I missed the San Diego lineup because I was doing stuff at the house and had Bombino in my team who didn't play in the first game. So I had just a couple of little flubs that didn't work out for me. The one that hurt was I had Biel on my bench. And I was like, okay, who do I swap for him to get his points in? And I did not pick the right one. I frankly thought that San Diego had some good looking lineups, and I kept Dreyer and I dropped Ojeda. And so I didn't have Rusnak. I don't know why I didn't have Rusnak. I know it's some versions of my team that I did, but I didn't have Rusnak either on the team. But at 174, I mean, I had Messi. Messi was my captain. Biggest surprise for me was Cincinnati as well. I think you nailed it, Ron. Coming away with the clean sheet in Cincinnati, coming away with the win when they were on the road at RSL. There's just been, you mentioned Nwobodo, the midfield has looked so suspect at times, almost like there is no midfield at all. Just trying to play those fast breaks, trying to get some of those balls, and it's just been scary at times because some of that presence just haven't been there. And I think Doyle put it well in his article this week when he talked about Cincinnati performing even though some of the underlying numbers aren't there, and it's scary. Of course, Dinke's injured now, out for a couple of weeks with this. In the second half with that RSL game, Evander just disappeared from the game because of the way everything was going, and so lucky to come away with that there. One thing we had talked about last week, we had mentioned that Orlando and New York City FC game, I'm pretty sure, and that that was one that we weren't sure about because there's a rivalry there. You never know what's going to happen. We saw New York get the better of that. 100% agree about Forsberg. That scoreline, I literally took a double take when I saw that score line, and then I opened up to see who scored the goals, and I was like, of course it was. That's absolutely wild. But you're right, Tyler. If you go back and look at his numbers, he's had 4 out of his last 5 games that he's gotten a goal or an assist in each of those games with Forsberg. But that's kind of my problem with him, is in those games he has a 7, and a 6, and so it just didn't work. I gotta go help Lady Boss right now. So if you guys want to do a little bit more die, I'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, people like Forsberg and I guess Surge can be in the category too. Just the fact that they're goal dependent doesn't always make them a bad player. You should always keep your eyes open at players like that because they're goal dependent for a reason. They score all the time or they assist all the time.
And those are often like I'd say 4 out of 5 times I have Surge, I have him on my bench.
Yeah.
Like I like, and then he's like the golden boot. Well, he and Messi, I guess, or no, maybe it's Messi now. But he's up there, and so it's like
They're
you can
tied,
really
yeah.
miss out on some big scores, but he's a boomer bust. But his booms are so big. Like we're starting to have a bunch of players with who have really big booms, right? Like there's some players that are getting harder to fade just because of the possibility of missing out on them, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you have even guys like Ty Baribo still is 4th in the Golden Boot race. Joveljic is still in 5th in the Golden Boot race, and you wouldn't even think of those people as being on your team usually. So yeah, it's you really gotta keep your eyes open for guys like that. Let's jump into quick break before we start our second segment of player targets. Double up, check our socials. Oh, I'm not logged into Twitter on this account. Interesting. All right. You good, Ron?
Yeah, I'm
All
good.
right. I guess I'm in charge now. All right. We are going to now go into. Oh, you want to do it, Reid? You want to go in to segment 2?
I'm back. It's okay. Sorry about that.
Segment 2.
That's why we don't. That's why we don't put the ringer totally off in case Lady Boss needs help and she encounters a giant spider when she's out walking the dog. So that's what that was. So thank you guys for picking up. That pretty much got my rundown right there. The last thing that I was going to mention before I had to run back is don't sleep on Vancouver. We mentioned last week also how they had a couple of little down rounds after they had just finished this massive round of tournaments and everything, and they came right back this week, had some really great scores with some of the players that we've traditionally targeted with Vancouver. So don't forget about some of these teams that may have some recovery period after they're coming back from these tournaments that we have. So, all right. Thank you guys for picking up real quick right there as I helped with the low-key family emergency. Thank you, everyone, looking at chat real quick. Some fantastic scores right here. Meg went from 221 to 216 overall with her score. See some Grumpy Gungan 166. Totally understand the missing the captain choice. That was so crucial this week, getting the captain. 196. That's a great 216 for Meg. That's what she scored overall. Let's see here, Gene 196 as well. So I mean, this was definitely a round where pushing 200 was really where you wanted to be to feel like you had a good round. So I think I did win a couple of my head-to-heads with the 170s, but it was rough. It was rough with some of those key picks. But the next round is a single game week, but it's still a good one. I'm really looking forward to it before we hit the break that's coming up after the All-Star game. But we will talk more about that coming up right after this. That. Yeah, sorry. She was walking the dog and there was just like a spider just suspended in midair from the tree, and she was like, "I can't move." My wife is just paralyzingly afraid of spiders, and so she was like, "I can't move. We can't do anything. I'm frozen." And so the dog was also not keen on it either. That was that right there. So okay, let me get the updated social. Fun how fast a show goes later in the year when like it's kind of like, yep, you know these people, let's keep going. Takeaway's pretty simple. There we go. I don't know if you all been paying attention. There's only like 10 rounds left in the year. Holy cow. Like a blink and it's gone.
Really? Only 10?
It's like 9 or 10. Yeah, it's coming down to the wire. 32 rounds, I think. That's right there.
Wow.
Okay. I know, right? Okay, here is the social for the second part of the show for everyone there. So again, appreciate people liking and sharing that on Twitter and Blue Sky or whatever social media platform that you choose to go to. And I'll grab a drink and we'll jump into our player targets. Change the bam, bam, and whoosh. Hello and welcome back. We're talking players to target going into round 22 for this fantasy round. First, quick little recap of housekeeping here. Nothing as massive as we had last week with the big double game week. This time it's a single game week. Every team is playing, so you don't have to worry about that. No bye teams, though, to help you with your Arus, but definitely some teams playing later in the week that can make that easy to activate. Games start, though, slightly different. Games start on Friday, July 25th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And that is with your typical Apple TV lineup, except we don't have a 9:30 game. So 7:30, 8:30, and 10:30. Pretty easy to get some Aru set up there. But you also have the next day on Saturday where everybody else is playing. Please do note, and this was a point that Ron made the first time he was on the show, and I think it's very important when it does happen. The first game of Inter Miami versus FC Cincinnati is at 7:15. So that is not on a 30 like we're used to things coming out here. But 7:15 is when the round starts on July 26th. That is a Saturday. And then everything else is your usual Apple TV lineup. 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, and a 10:30 game to wrap everything
round starts
up.
Friday, though.
Right, Friday, July 25th for the first series, and then Saturday, July 26th for the second set of games. So the most important thing to know about this round, though, is Wednesday is the All-Star game. MLS All-Stars versus the League MX All-Stars. So you could find the list of players who have been selected to travel for that. We'll link it in the article below or the description below. But just a few teams, key players who are going to be there. Maybe not for your defenders that you're going to look at this week. Personally, I feel like the defender section was kind of robbed on some of the quality defenders that we usually look at. But, I mean, we have people on there like Kai Wagner, Alex Freeman, Jordi Alba. Those are guys who people talk about in their teams. Andy Najjar, like those people are there. And the frequent fantasy names, as well as many of the midfielders, many of the forwards that people typically target. The All-Star game is strange because they're going to try to get as many people to play as they can. So the impact of players for their fitness may not really be tested that much. So since we have some games on Friday, maybe those guys would be the most subject to potential resting, but those may be guys who play the first 45 minutes or the first 30 minutes of the game before things get rotated out. And so I don't think, what I'm getting at is I don't think that you really have to worry about your players missing significant minutes because of the All-Star game, unless they were to get injured, forbid, for that. But I don't think this will take a huge toll on the players. But do be aware, because you never know. People are going to be looking ahead. Coaches are looking ahead into what's coming up. There is going to be a bit of a break for fantasy, so we'll have more on that in just a second. But just keep that in mind that there is the All-Star game, and so watch it if nothing else to see the players go out there who you voted for. Guys, I know Ron, you were talking about this. Who were some of the fantasy snubs from the All-Star team?
Well, like on the talking with some other folks on the Discord, we were like, well, who are like some of the players like the highest fantasy scores, right? But who didn't get taken. And it turned out all 5 are midfielders. And you could do worse in this midfield, like if you went with this. It's Ojeda, Biel, Mihailovic, Rusnak, and Forsberg. And so, an argument for that like kind of crazy midfield is that they will not have, done that extra plane flight, and they might have a big chip on their shoulder. Because, like, I am sure these people know they are not there. When that game is going on, it's not like they are indifferent. They know they were not selected. And, I just think like sometimes you bring it to your next game. So, there's some thoughts in there.
Yeah, there in midfield, Berhalter was voted in, which I guess that's legitimate. I see that. Very good. Evander was voted in, which I think is a fine one. Then Diego Luna was voted in, so I have no problem with who was voted in there. But then we have Espinoza as a coach's selection, Heel as a coach's selection, Mukhtar as a coach's selection, Zickernagel as a coach's selection. So a lot of big name guys selected to be brought in by the coaching staff into the team there. So funny enough, the commissioner's pick went to Chucky Lozano to have him in at forward. So that was an interesting pick right there for that. But yeah, again, a lot of big names are right here. Baribo, Bawanga, Dyer, Messi, Rossi, Surridge, like a lot of the people we're targeting. So check it out. You'll see it. And we'll be sure to mention some of these guys as we're talking about the players who we're targeting. So, guys, let's get right into there. All-Star games going on. You're fresh off of the massive double game week as far as it comes to schedules for fantasy after this for round 23. Nothing happens until August 9th. So we've got a whole week off before games happen again. With all that in mind, who are you targeting going into this round? Starting as always, keepers and defenders. Tyler, who are you looking at?
This was actually kind of tricky for me looking at keepers and defenders for the week. I had a very hard time identifying where possible clean sheets might be. And I personally think we're all in agreement that the front end of your keeper should be someone like Ivicic playing against Montreal at home. He seems to be, like, on the Friday games, probably the best bet. And then for my back end, it's going to sound a little controversial and I might get yelled at by Black and Red in the comments, but I'm actually leaning towards someone like Barraza or possibly Stuver. I honestly think that DC and Austin game just ends 0-0. Stuver's probably the better option. He also has the All-Star game. I'm not sure how that will affect him. Usually doesn't affect goalies, but you never know. And then Barraza, I think, is just an overall fun pick. So why not? I'm the fun guy. Might as well pick that fun pick. For defenders this week, I have 3 that are like locked in for me, and then 2 that I think they could do well. So my 3 pretty much locks are Kai Wagner at home, great matchup. Luca Orishano, because he's been popping off lately. And then my other lock-in right now, I would say, is probably Sabalos for New England, just to pair up with Ivicic. And then my 2, just kind of depending on what my bench does, are Brendan Heinzike and Ryan Hollingshead.
Yeah, Hollingshead. That's been a nice go-to for a lot of people with his offensive nature there. Ron, what about you?
So before rattling off my players, I want to give my bird's eye view on the defensive situation this week. And that is that it's kind of schizophrenic. And so I really agree with Ranch that, like, there's a lot of like problem clean sheet situations, like trappy ones that look like they might happen, but there's, like maybe Prince Owusu just like scores a goal because he just seems to break a lot of clean sheets, right? And a whole lot of those. At the same time, it's a very beautifully spread out schedule. And so you really like have a lot of opportunities to use your bench in other words, like most weeks, I'm a 3-5 in the back Otteru guy, and I just want my 3 best defenders, and I like almost don't care when people are playing. I just want the best ones. And this week, I want to take 5 defenders and put 2 on my bench and 3 on the field because there's a lot of flexibility in like looking at good possibilities at least. So that said, when I just like made up my lineup quickly, this is who I came up with. Well, keeper. I'll go keepers first, and I'm gonna do either. There's like a lot of people. Ivacic, Paz, Kalina, or Lloris are probably my front end. My back end is very likely to be Takaoka. And I think at this minute, if I was going to do it, it would be Ivacic to Takaoka. So Ivacic at the front end of the Keeperoo, Takaoka at the back end. I do feel like Kubas is back. They just had a shutout, right? Vancouver. I like them at home. Yes, KC scoring goals, but I like Vancouver at the back end. And then my big 5 defenders would be Feingold, who's like back off the injury list, and I think just scored a goal. Wagner, maybe Malanda. I know that maybe Malanda because I still like the matchup. Ocampo or another Vancouver defender. And then Hollingshead would be my 5th. And I do want to say something about the LAFC defense. They have a great record at home. Until their last game against the Galaxy, only 6 goals given up at home. Then they just gave up 3. But they really have some problems too, which is that they're low on center backs because Segura just got a red card. Long had his Achilles injury. So it's probably going to be like Tafari and maybe Hollingshead playing center back. So you got to think about that if you want Hollingshead, because it's a little bit of a put together back line. But he's a good player and he plays well in lots of places.
I don't think Hollingshead would be there. I know at the end of the game they moved Igor Jesus to center back.
Well, but okay, or it's something like that, right? Like where you really have somebody who doesn't play that position very often, and like what happened at the end of the game. Like, so I prefer like I think if you're going to take an LAFC defender, it's not crazy, but consider putting that defender on the bench. Mm-hmm. And many weeks you don't have that opportunity, but you do this week because you got enough games afterwards. So those are my defender thoughts.
Yeah, I think that is the key worry that a lot of people have for LAFC is just some of that inconsistencies at the back. Who it's going to be? The game the other day did not help with the brawl that happened there, or the mass confrontation that happened there in El Tráfico. Very similar to you guys. I mean, I think it's pretty solid that Feingold, Malanda, Wagner will probably be chalk this round. If people aren't going with Feingold because he's just come back, we got an assist. Somebody from New England is probably pretty chalky right there. I'm in the same mindset as you guys for the keepers. Looking at New England was the first team that jumped out to me when I was making my lineup with the betting against Montreal. Right there, that was that big bet. With that, didn't really like Columbus Orlando because Columbus hasn't been solid. Orlando has the ability to make goals. Not sold on either defense with Dallas and New York. I mean, Houston just got a big goose egg at home this past round, so I don't think that LA Galaxy is going to get shutouts. But it's like I have no faith in what's going on right there. I would normally like LAFC against Portland, if not for everything that's happened and some of those inconsistencies there. Otherwise, I'd be definitely willing to take a flyer on Lloris and everybody. And the same thing with San Diego and Nashville. Nashville's got a lot of talent, a lot of threat right there. So I really feel like New England is the standout match from that first game, which gives you so many options. Like you guys said, Charlotte's a good call out right there. I'm not sure about Vancouver. I totally get it. We know my history at Vancouver. Sporting Kansas City has been on just a streak of scoring. I don't think they've been shut out in the past maybe 6 rounds at least, 5 to 6 rounds. They've gotten 1 to 2 goals each round. Now, arguably not the strongest competition that they've played. I think Vancouver's definitely one of the strongest teams, if not the strongest team they've played in that same time. But they're not toothless in this new post Peter Vermes era that we are in. That has some wonder. One that jumped out at me at first, we were talking before the show started. So I was kind of looking at Cabral right there. Some of that maybe it's recency biased with kind of seeing RSL play last night against Cincinnati and how they were doing pretty well with some of the defense. San Jose is not highly rated by us for defense, but they've been scoring as well. So some of the same copy paste what I just said about Vancouver and Sporting Kansas City is a risk right there. So I think Charlotte's a great call out there if you're looking at that Aru. For the defense, I mean, you can maybe even do Philadelphia if you want to, with some questions about how Colorado might perform on the road. I think that's another one. With defenders, like I'm pairing up with the players. Another one I might throw in there is possibly Gutman. He has some offensive capabilities. Don't have a lot of faith there, but don't be afraid. Like we've gone through several different teams, and I saw this conversation in chat going on right now. Don't be afraid to stack. If you like a team, then you can go in. Like if you feel very strongly about Philadelphia, this could be a round where you just go all in on that defense. Maybe you're questioning what's going to happen with the offense there with that match, but you could go all in with the defense right there. Maybe I was going to say Charlotte, but I don't see why you wouldn't take Beal if you're doing that. Maybe you don't feel like Carles Gil's going to do well. Like you could go all in with the defense like that. I mean, it's whatever you kind of want to do. Feel like you. I think this is a round where you could stack a team on defense if you wanted to go with that and not kind of go spreading the field if you wanted to. It's just consider what that's going to look like. What are you going to give up? And that's what the conversation was in chat right now. Just how confident are people with that? And I don't think I'm 3 at the back LAFC confident for sure. But yeah, a lot of the same names that are going to be there. It will be interesting to see who gets in there because I do agree, Ron. This is a round where it seems like 5 defenders in the back could really shine with everything that's going on. And be sure, guys, if you have that set up with your Arus, just make sure 2 of the guys on your field are from the later games on Saturday so that you have the opportunity to preview those points.
I meant to throw one more, which is Markanich, who I mentioned earlier. But away, but away to St. Louis, and Minnesota's been pretty strong when they play away, and he's got like 4 goals in 5 games, and got an assist in the game before that. Like that's really high production from a defender. It's hard to ignore that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. This is an interesting one, I thought. Let's move on to midfielders. We already started teasing it with the All-Star game. Tyler, who are you looking at?
The very first player on my team this week was Gil, simply because he's playing against Montreal. I know he's in the All-Star game, but I do still think that he's gonna come back and really want to show that he's worth being an All-Star to his actual team. And then after that, the only other All-Star that I do have on my team is Zinkernagel right now. His production right now is absurdly good. And that's the main reason I want him, although he's not always the best at home, which is kind of ironic because most players are good at home. But Chicago's that weird one that's good on the road, so he could fall off my team. And then kind of going along with like what Ron was saying, players that want to prove themselves, I'm going to go with Pep Biel. He's proven himself to me the last few weeks, and I think he's going to prove himself once again against a weak Toronto team that just lost 2 of their best players. Another guy that I really like is Hartel this week. Shout out to Meg from 2 weeks ago, mentioning him as a differential. He really is one of those players that can rack up bonus points but also when he scores, it's gonna be pretty high points. And this week he has a Minnesota team that's pretty good team. So it's more towards bonus points, but if he happens to score a goal, I truly do think he's gonna absolutely erupt in value. And then my other pick this week right now is Forsberg, who we already were just talking about. Guy's on a tear. Chicago is not very good defensively. So why not have a guy like Forsberg?
I get it.
I'm kind of fiddling with what I want to do with my fifth midfielder in Zinkernagel. I might fade him and go with someone like Rusnak, who has something to prove. I just am really worried with Seattle traveling all the way. I think it's literally the longest travel going from. Oh no, never mind. It's not the longest, but they're going all the way to Atlanta. I think going to Orlando is the longest travel from Seattle to Orlando. But either way, going all the way to Atlanta is a long travel for Seattle players, so I'd be nervous about that myself. Anyways, I'm rambling. Let Ron take it away.
Yeah, well, this actually on your Hartel point, in addition to what you said, and like going after his bonus points, Minnesota, who lets the other team have the ball like 70%.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, we have Ron froze.
Who
Give
has the
him
ball
just a
like
second.
70% of the
to that
time?
idea.
There
You
we go.
froze real quick,
Yeah,
Ron.
You're back. Oh, there we go.
Oh, sorry about that. Wait, what I was saying is your point about Hartel is awesome because Minnesota is going to let them have the ball 70% of the game because that's what Minnesota does every game. And that's like, if somebody's a bonus point machine, they will make more bonus points from that.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the McGlynn thing I mentioned a million years ago. And so I have some of those same guys. And then I think there's like a few people that I just want to mention that they're so that have tough matchups, but they're so good that you just like can't completely disregard them. And that's Dreyer, Rusnak, and Ojeda. Like they're still viable because they're just super good. Like they may become kind of and actually I guess like even add Evander on that too. I should. Like these are just people who are so good, so consistently good that it's hard to ignore them. And you know, Evander, for example, just came off of his last game against Miami. He did great. He like stole the show. So different deal being down in Miami, but still a choice. And then maybe a little bit out there one is Dill Rosen from LAFC. Like LAFC still has like Portland's defense is not that great on the road, and if there's a midfielder who will score from that team, it's still Rosen. That's a bench play, but just a kind of an alternative.
Yeah, that's a real differential because there's been a theme of LAFC just struggling to have consistent fantasy midfield options that it seems like for at least the past
they're not
couple
built,
of
but
years.
he's the number 2 guy. He's the guy they want to get the ball to if it's not Blanc. So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting midfield options that you guys said. I mean, one thing I wanted to point out about Evander is, of course, had the great game against Inter Miami at the beginning of the round. Didn't do much in that second part of the double game week, but he got 8 points in a game where Evander didn't assist or score. He came away with 8 points right there, and a lot of that is because of those key pass and somewhat cross, mostly the key pass numbers that he generates. He got 12 key passes, 3 points generated from those bonus points, and he consistently. It's rare that he gets fewer than 6 key passes in a game. So he's always flirting with a couple of key pass points right there almost every round. And so that's just amazing. This is going to be a huge game. I mean, Miami is not happy with coming away with the shutout. Cincinnati breaking that streak that they had going of the games where they were scoring. So that's going to be a huge game for both teams to come there. Definitely have Evander on the list, barring something happening at the All-Star game. I think he's also in the skills challenge that they have as well. But definitely expect that he's going to be up for that game there. Heel was another one, just like you, Ranch, going against Montreal. Grabbed him really quick. Beal's one that I grabbed very fast. And then it starts coming down. I'm going to just say the fifth one because I do also like Rusnak. We've talked about the last few weeks, road teams that are worth looking at. And I think Seattle going to Atlanta is one that's worth looking at for Rusnak. I don't know about the defense options because Atlanta has been able to get a little bit going this round. Not enough that I want to throw them into my top 5 or 6 for midfield. But I don't think Seattle walks away with a clean sheet from this game, but Rusnak's definitely there. You guys have already started touching on several of the other options. I'm going to add Goncalves as well. A lot of people are going to look at Diego Luna as kind of a go-to for RSL. We said that San Jose can ship goals, and Goncalves has been doing pretty well for the past few rounds. He has 1 goal. He has 2 goals over his last 4 games, but he had a lot of opportunities against Cincinnati in this last option. He had 10 key passes. He's another guy who gets a lot of key passes, so he's giving that service and getting those opportunities for shots. So if you are looking for some other options, you don't want to go with the Diego Luna. I think he is absolutely someone who's also pushing for goal as an easy option right there. I love the Ojeda shout out because we mentioned that Columbus isn't very solid. One thing to note is be careful if you're looking at Dallas. I don't think Lucho played in this past round, and there's some rumors about him being rested for potential transfer back to Argentina and not just sort of anything else. So I know his name has popped up a few times, so keep an eye on that if you're keep looking at those games. So we mentioned Evander as a road team to look at. I mean, reluctantly, I'm going to have to agree with you, Tyler, about Forsberg. I am not going to pick him, so you're welcome, everyone who does want to pick him, and he'll do something. But he has. I totally get it. All that aside, I totally get it. He's had some more consistency. You might get a 7 out of him, which is fine. Which is fine for a single game week. I think you'd want more out of your midfielder. I think several of these other guys have a chance to get you double digits, but it's fine. Chicago is definitely not a team that does well. You had mentioned Zinkernagel. I think he's only scored a goal in 2 of all of the home games that they've had this round. So it is just shockingly mind-boggling. One name not on my list that I'll mention when we're going through here is at the All-Star game is Espinoza. Great player, has not put up the fantasy numbers that we've looked for this year. So I think RSL will be. I think that'll be a good game that's in store between these two teams. I think it'll be a challenging game, and I don't think it's one that makes him jump out to me for my roster. Which, I mean, sometimes he's done well. He's been very, very hit or miss, but just that inconsistency has not worked for me as well. Then, of course, let's see. Did you guys have, looking through your list real quick, I'll see it there. I mean, Berhalter that got called up for the All-Star game. If he's back and he's playing, I mean, again, I can see why people would look at Berhalter for that 5th spot as well. He's been doing very well for the team. So a lot of midfield options. I love it. I love it so much with the midfield options. But for me, I think I'm definitely looking at probably at least that 4-player chalk of Heel, Evander, Biel, and Rusnak. Then really looking at that 5th player to see what I want to do. Chat.
I noticed nobody really was talking about Mukhtar.
I think it's the road game is what it is. The road game to San Diego. Yeah.
And it's interesting because McVay is hurt now.
Yeah.
So you got McVay hurt and McNair also hurt. So you're back to the 2nd string center backs, which isn't a bad idea to look towards someone like Mukhtar. He could be like what Ron was saying.
Sure.
One of those players that's a differential that you wouldn't consider a differential.
Yeah, he's got mixed results on the road. Definitely some successes though. So he's not a player. He's got some goals, got some assists, and that's a great point with the backup team. Then yeah, you could add him in potentially there as well. Another all-star. So see, he's been kind of hot and cold this year. I know that's been something we've discussed but he's been a bit more consistent in this second half of the year. Him and Surridge.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to forwards. Tyler, who are you looking at?
You know, just the second best player in the world. I mean, first best player, Messi, the GOAT. And then I have Bouanga because I truly believe in Bouanga's power since getting out of CCC. He's been doing very well. And one thing I kind of want to go back on, which is related to my third forward. You had mentioned to be careful of Dallas players because Lucho is being transferred out.
I said be careful of Lucho.
Yeah, but you said keep your eye on Dallas or something like that.
Yeah.
The one player I think everyone should be keeping their eye on is Pilar Musa.
Yeah.
Who, in these 2 games that Lucho has not been a part of, all of a sudden Pilar Musa is playing like a Jesus Ferreira role almost when he was on Dallas last year, where he kind of is an inverted forward and playing more like a 10 as a forward. And in these last 2 games, he scored 4 goals over the 2 games last week, and he got an assist. So all of a sudden, Lucho's gone and Musa's erupting, when before we were like, oh man, Musa is getting fed by Lucho. This is going to be amazing. And it almost fell into, I know this is going to hurt you a little bit, Reid. It almost was like people hyping up Brenner for getting fed by Lucho, which was a great idea until all of a sudden Brenner left. But now it's the opposite, where now Lucho's leaving and Musa's doing well all of a sudden. You want to say something on that, or are you just gonna?
No, I'm just thinking about how awful it was having Brenner. And how happy I am to have Denke. So I'll just leave it at that. I will just leave it at that.
Yep.
Ron.
So yeah, I definitely will have Messi and Bouanga. I think my third forward, and I love that Musa shout, by the way. That's like, you can't ignore that. But I think my third one is going to be Brian White, and it is a little bit of a vibes. It's a vibes pick, which is that, first of all, this is when Brian White goes off, just when you've forgotten he exists.
Yep.
When you've forgotten that guy exists, he just like explodes. And I just think like the stars are aligning well for him. They played well their last game. He's like kind of like underused by the national team, but he's still really good. They're getting healthier up there. So Brian White, and like another player who sort of he scored coming back, and who was like almost like chalk at the beginning, was Ty Barton, and like he's back for Philadelphia, and he's going to be their main guy, and up against up against the Rapids, which is not like a great defense. Like that's a good that's a good one too. So those are the main ones I was looking at: Messi, Bouanga, White, Musa, Barco. And forced to pick right now, Brian White as my third forward.
Yeah, White's a great shout out. Musa, who I have. I mean, you said exactly what I was thinking, Tyler, for the 3 right there. Kind of a bummer. Like, it's just so, for the last few rounds, it's just been like Messi Bouanga plus, Messi Bouanga plus, and so it's kind of just been repetitive there at the front. But they haven't put up the points. That's really all that matters at the end of the day. Musa's who I have. I know we talked about them not being good at home, but Kuipers has scored in his past 2 or 3 home games. He's not been as productive on the road, so potentially him. But I think this is coming down to, said Messi, Bouanga, Surridge, Musa, White, and maybe Kuipers right there. Like, those are the 6 guys that I think are in the main running. I don't care much for Rossi this round. I just, like I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I just don't find him very consistent in how he scores, or to have a high ceiling. It's like you might get one out of him, and that's kind of it. And so he just doesn't excite me with anything that goes on right there. So
I do want to remind people that if someone happens to choose to skip the All-Star game, they are not allowed to play on the weekend. So if you have someone like Messi that's like, I'm not actually going to attend the All-Star game, all of a sudden he's not available for the weekend and you cannot play him.
That's a good shout out. That is.
And another thing is we're on the cusp of this like transfer window that could throw some curveballs at
Yeah.
us. Like I mentioned Bill Rosen, but actually they could end his loan and he'd be gone. Like that's one guy, a midfielder. But on the other side of that is like NYCFC has their new DP10 and he might be available. I don't know. Maybe not. You know, I don't think he might be a midfielder, but maybe Alonso Martinez on the road being fed by this new guy. You know, there could be some twists and turns this week is what is between all with the moving parts.
Yeah, the window makes it very interesting. All right, well then let's again go into the chat real quick, saying yeah, not many different names there. So let's just wrap everything up with our captain pick. So as always, the way this has evolved, who are you picking for your captain? And if not Messi, then who would it be, Tyler?
Well, I guess if not, I would pick Heel. But if he's available, I think you have to pick Messi.
Okay, Ron.
I would, after Messi, I would consider Blanc pretty seriously, and he's been a decent captain choice when people have gone for him as an alternative. So Blanca and maybe, I mean, Cheel certainly, Biel could be. You could do it.
Yeah, that would be my three. I agree. That would be my three: Messi, Bouanga, Biel. Those, I think, in that order as well. So Bouanga would definitely be my backup to Messi. We will see. He's played double game weeks. He's going to be at the All-Star game. There's a thought process of does he sit something out? Not Cincinnati at home after getting shut out. Like that's like, so is he good now? Like, is he good to just play? Like, what's coming up for Inter Miami? Maybe he gets some rest for that. They're Cincinnati's trying to keep that top spot. Miami's pushing for it, so we will see. But yeah, another round where it's very likely you're going to have Messi. Very likely you're going to need to have Messi just to make sure you keep up with everybody else, because you saw what happened last week. Got shut out and then still pulls a 50-point captain right there. So, and those are just points you can't pass up on if you're looking to try to move up the ranks, even here near the end of the game. Going over there, a lot of people over there. Messi, Bouanga, Biel going right there. And Black and Red agrees, says, Messi will be going 90 this weekend. 100%. Like there's all sorts of stuff right here. The Gene is looking at Biel as a backup to Messi. So I don't think we'll have to worry about that. So it's good. It's good. So
I'm trying to just be my 2021 self, Heel in 2021, ACG,
ACG.
I want ACG back, not ACM.
We're back to ACM for at least another year, maybe two. So we'll see what happens with all that. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to wrap up as we do every week with talking about our plugs. Tyler.
I'm going to do my typical plug and just mention my article. Meg has been a wonderful addition to the article. Matt is awesome as always. So just check out the differentials article every week. It usually drops on Wednesdays. And just enjoy the All-Star game. Take a nice relaxing time from fantasy and enjoy watching some soccer.
Absolutely. Ron.
Well, shout out to Ashley for a quick recovery from her illness. To Mike Lester Kenobi on Discord and my co-author again on the Fantasy Strategy Clinic. It's been such a great time working on that with him. And then one little tidbit from, it's sort of like a week delayed, but so for the Club World Cup, which is sort of a goofy tournament, but was interesting. There was a fantasy game, and we had our own MLS Fantasy Boss Discord league within that. And I want to give a shout out to a member of our community, who Terry Rokas, who I think is FCL at FCL guy on the Discord, a frequent contributor there, who won that league and was like 7th worldwide. And there was
Wow.
like hundreds of thousands of people, a lot of people who did that. So like he did amazing, and he's having a great fantasy season this year. So shout out to Terry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember you told me that last week. I totally forgot about it. So I'm so glad you got to shout out that member of our community who's killing it. Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, you all heard me. I am one of the many who have not bought into that Club World Cup, but so excited to hear about our community doing well. There were some interesting quirks about that game, fantasy wise. We'll have to definitely talk about that maybe a little bit later in the year, but so it's different way of doing it.
There's ideas there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, thanks for shouting that out. For me, of course, thank you everyone who has been contributing this year to the website. Both we have Tyler and Ron who have doing that. The articles have been so awesome, such a great reception to it. So be sure to check that out over at MLSFantasyBoss.com. We have a full week to get them all just gradually rolled out this week. So the whole team did fantastic these last 2 double game weeks, making sure that we had content coming out. So thanks to everyone there. I know saw Eli in chat. He's been doing well, kind of filling in with his dad's article getting axed by MLS this year. So it's been a good time, and it's just such a great just way to give back to the community to have that content there. So check that out. Again, you're already listening to the podcast, so thank you so much for doing that. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you can keep getting those notifications, help get the podcast out there. And then just the Discord community, as we talk about, can't say enough. Such a fantastic place. If even at this point of the season, you are still just finding this MLS fantasy community, head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord and just be a part of there. It's just such a great community. So many top players who are willing to engage, give advice, and just have some general fun soccer chat when things are going on. So MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord, the best way to get there. But yeah, enjoy this week. Enjoy the All-Star Challenge. Don't forget about the Skills Challenge. That can be kind of fun. And so just be ready to have that. And so, as always, good luck.
Recording stopped.
Recording stopped.